it up, made a meal in a minute. Gang banging, I killed the lieutenant. Dope boy and I'm still winning. Still rolling on Nolansville. Shoot out the window, yo, hold the wheel. Then keep riding, we know the drill. From Nashville, still a river rat. Keep a semi with me, I'm a bust that.
It's me, SimbaTV. Bang! What is good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Simba coming back here again with another reaction video for you guys today. For today's reaction video, we got Mr. Ballin' shocking police footage tucking inside this container. Let's jump up in it.
Today's story includes some of the most dramatic police footage I've ever seen in my life. So if you're on the fence,
you know it's crazy, man, when he says some shit like that. He's seen a lot of crazy shit.
But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once or twice every week. So if that's of interest to you, please draw a gun on the like button and force them to retie your untied shoelaces right after you've stomped around.
Where does he come up with this?
Outdoor music festival. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's story. In 2015, 29-year-old Johnny Coxey and his wife, 25-year-old Megan Coxey, were living in a low-income section of Spartanburg, South Carolina. They both struggled mightily with drug addiction to the point where it was nearly impossible to get steady work, and so they often found themselves out on the streets begging for money. Their addictions also made it nearly impossible to be a good parent to their only child. And in fact, in December of that year, Child Protective Services stepped in and took their child away from them. And if that wasn't bad enough, almost immediately after their child was taken from them, both Megan and Johnny were arrested and thrown in jail for various offenses that were connected to their drug habits. So Johnny and Megan are at absolute rock bottom at this point as they're sitting in jail, but they were about to get a big break. After they both got out of jail, they were only in jail for a couple of days, Megan was contacted by a local, very successful real estate agent named Todd CASHAPP. Todd was someone she had met previously when she used to be a waitress at a local diner, and Todd was reaching out to her to somewhat unbelievably offer her and her husband pretty decent paying jobs. Apparently, Todd had recently purchased this massive 95-acre plot of land in the area, and he needed people to come onto the property and help clean it up and clear brush and clean some of the buildings that are on there, because his plan was to further develop this property. And so he had been reaching out to other people in Spartanburg to see if they were interested, and Megan and her husband were two people he had contacted. And so, of course, Megan and Johnny say, yes, we would love to do this job. They were in desperate need of cash, and paying jobs did not come around very often. So on December 19th of that year, Megan spoke to her mother and told her about this job opportunity and where it was and what she'd be doing. And then she and Johnny made their way out to this property. And when they got there, they saw this huge chain link fence wrapped around what seemed like a massive forest. And this forest was the 95-acre plot of land that Todd owned. And so apparently at the center of this forest were a few buildings that Johnny and Megan would be responsible for cleaning. And so they made their way down the fence line until they found the break in the fence, and that led to an access road, and they began driving down it deep into the heart of this forest. Ooh, 3 days later, Megan's mother tried to get in touch with her, but she couldn't. And when she reached out to Johnny, she couldn't get in touch with him either. And so given the couple's history with drugs, Megan's mother thought the worst, that, you know, maybe they overdosed. And so she panics and she rushes to Megan and Johnny's house. They're not there. And so something in her gut tells her that something is wrong here. It's not common for them to just completely go off the grid. And so she called the police. The police began their investigation by speaking to Todd CASHAPP, who was the owner of this property, because presumably he was one of the last people to see them before they went missing. But when they spoke to Todd, he said, look, you know, I had limited interaction with them. They were on my property. They came out, they cleaned these two buildings on my property, and then I paid them and they left. And we haven't had any contact since. So, you know, unfortunately, I don't have a clue where they would have gone next. And so at this point, the police decide their best bet is just to wait and see what happens. Although they did not tell Johnny or Megan's families this, the police force did have a running suspicion that, you know, it was possible, if not likely, that the couple had used the money from cleaning up this property to go buy drugs, and then they went on a drug binge.
Yeah, that is very possible, but wouldn't your first thought be to like check the property? Like, I don't know. Like for me, like if I'm a cop and I know that's the last place they were at, I'm probably gonna try to get like a warrant, a search warrant or whatever to search the property, you know, or just to even ask him like, yo, can we just like snoop around like the outside real quick, you know, and just see like, you know, if there's anything going on or whatever. I don't know. At least that's how I think. I don't know.
And they would either turn up in a couple of days alive or dead from an overdose. But a couple of days went by and the couple did not reemerge and no one had any idea where they were. And then a couple of weeks went by and then a couple of months went by and it wasn't long before the case went cold.
Wow.
But it would not stay cold for very long. On August 31st, 2016, so roughly 8 months after
Halloween.
the Coxies were reported missing, 2 more residents...
Wait, did he say October 31st? Or August 31st. I heard October.
For very long. On August 31st,
I'm tripping out. My
2016,
bad.
so roughly 8 months after the Coxies were reported missing, 2 more residents of Spartanburg went missing as well. They were 30-year-old Kayla Brown and her boyfriend, 32-year-old Charlie Carver. The pair had only been dating for about a month, but they were becoming quite serious, with Charlie already introducing Kayla to his family, a step that Charlie's father said was a very big deal for him. Unlike the Coxies, Kayla and Charlie were not struggling with drug addiction or with financial issues. They were actually pretty well off. Charlie worked full-time operating a printer at a local business, and Kayla made a living by doing odd jobs around town. According to their families, it seemed like the couple was very happy with their lives and the directions they were going. But starting on the evening of August 31st, Kayla and Charlie stopped returning text messages or answering phone calls. Charlie's father was especially close with Charlie, and so this sudden silence was immediately noticed by him, but he kind of ruled it out and thought, you know what, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation for why he's not texting me back, and so, you know, I'll hear from him over the next couple of days. But over the next couple of days, Charlie continued not to answer text messages or pick up phone calls, same with Kayla, and so after 48 hours of this total silence, Charlie's father finally hopped in his car and drove to his son's house to see if he was there, and he wasn't. And then he drove to Kayla's place, and she wasn't there either. And so none of it made any sense, and so he called the police and he reported them missing. The police started with absolutely no leads, and so what they did to begin their investigation was basically just to interview everybody in Charlie and Kayla's life. Friends, family, acquaintances, employers, co-workers, everyone, but no one had any idea where this couple had gone.
Damn, that's
to.
crazy,
They had not
man.
told anyone about some trip they were going on or something they were going to do. It just seemed like they had vanished. And so initially, this investigation really got nowhere. But 2 months after they had been reported missing, the police finally obtained a search warrant that would allow them to look at their respective cell phone records. And when they looked at Kayla's cell phone records, they were able to triangulate roughly where her last known location was, according to pings her cell phone was sending off to nearby cell phone towers. And they discovered her last known location, at least of her cell phone, was inside of the same 95-acre plot of land that the Coxies had been on before they went missing. And so immediately the police put in for a search warrant to go search this 95-acre property.
There
and
you
they
go.
sent a team actually out to the property, and they actually set up outside of that big fence and just waited for the search warrant to clear. And at the same time, another group of police officers went to Todd Colehep's house, which was actually in town about 20 minutes away from this property, to talk to him about why in the world Kayla's cell phone would be pinging inside of his property. And so when the police arrive at his front doorstep, Todd is obviously caught off guard by suddenly there being all these police officers. And he does understand very quickly how unbelievably suspicious it looks that now you have potentially 2 couples that have gone onto his property right before they vanished.
Yep.
And so he says to them, look, I know how this looks, but I gotta tell you, I did hire Kayla and her boyfriend did come along with her. She went onto my property. She did some work work for me. She cleaned up some stuff, cleared some brush, and then I paid them, and then they left. That is the last I saw.
Man,
of them.
I don't trust him, bro. I don't trust him.
Would be on my property.
Look, that's 2 times, bro. Someone went missing on your shit that you paid, and they just left and went missing. Nah, I don't trust you, bro. You weird. You on some Joker DC type shit. Like, you weird, bro.
At the same time, the team of police officers were kind of grilling Todd at his house. The other team that was outside of the 95-acre property, they found out their search warrant had been granted. And so they flew through the gate, they got on that access road, and they began bombing into this huge forest. And as they're driving, they pull out their maps they had printed out that showed the rough estimation of where her final location was within this property. And it looked like the last spot was inside of a clearing. And so as they're driving down this access road through all these trees, they see up ahead, there is a clearing, and it looks very much like the clearing on their map where this final location is. And when they pull into the clearing, off to the left side of the road are these 2 green buildings. The left building was like a shed, like something you might keep yard tools in, like lawnmowers and shovels and rakes, that kind of thing. And then right next to it on the right was this metal shipping container, and it had all these metal chains and 5 padlocks keeping it shut. Now,
why you need 5 padlocks?
Are thinking, oh my goodness, is Kayla inside one of these buildings?
Right,
because
yeah.
This is probably where her last location was. And so right away, the police went inside of the left building, the shack, because it was easier to get into. There weren't padlocks all over it. And when they got inside, there really was nothing of note. Kayla was not in there. Charlie was not in there. There was no cell phone in there. It was just gardening tools. And so they went over to the right building, the shipping container, and they got out their metal cutting saws and their bolt cutters, and they began cutting into all of these locks and chains. And when they finally got that door open, they were absolutely astounded at what they saw inside.
Yes. Pull that one first. All right, let them get ready. Everybody. Come on, guys. It's jammed in here. Give me that crowbar back. Where's that? Get that big crowbar in. Right here. John, put it down here. Yeah, behind the watch out. Y'all move. I got it. Watch out, boss.
Joey.
Sheriff's officer.
What?
Back up there.
Just one. Are you okay?
Grab what? Go.
Do you have any weapons? Coming through, okay?
What's your name? What's your name, man?
Lauren.
Okay.
There's people in there?
Just a girl. Just a girl. How are you, honey? This is our investigator. He's a paramedic, sweetheart.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to get you out of there, okay?
No.
I need a handcuff key.
The police had just discovered Kayla. She was in rough shape, and she had a metal chain wrapped around her neck that was anchored to the wall, and she was handcuffed, but she was alive. And after they cut her free and got her out of the shipping container, she told them what happened. She said back on August 31st, 2016, so this was the same day that Charlie's father had realized his son was not responding to his text messages, and when he was calling Kayla, she wasn't answering either. So on that day, Kayla says she was contacted by a friend of hers, Todd Kohlhepp, and he told her that he was still looking for people to come out and help clean up the property because he was getting ready to develop it. And so Kayla, she was looking for work, and so she agreed to do it. And after getting this job, Kayla would tell Charlie, and Charlie, just being a good boyfriend, said, you know what, I'll tag along with you and I'll help you do this job. I won't ask Todd for any money. I'm just gonna go and help you. And so Kayla was totally thrilled about this. And so later that day, she and Charlie, they made their way out to the 95-acre property. They reached that fence that kind of borders the entire property. They followed it until they hit that break in the fence. They hopped on the access road and they began driving into the heart of this very thick forest. And after driving for several minutes, they reached this clearing. And in this clearing, they see Todd up ahead on the left. He's smiling and waving at them, and he's standing in front of the shack and the metal shipping container. And so Charlie pulls the car in right in front of Todd, and then Charlie and Kayla, they get out, they walk up to Todd to, see what he needs, see what he wants them to do. And as soon as the couple is standing in front of Todd, Todd just casually pulls out a gun and shoots Charlie 3 times in the chest. And as soon as Charlie falls to the ground, Todd aims the gun at Kayla and says, if you go anywhere, I will kill you and I will kill your family. And then he put the gun away, walked over to Charlie, and he wrapped him up in a blue tarp, and then he carried his lifeless body and dumped him in the nearby bucket of a tractor. And then Todd just walked back over to Kayla, who's witnessed this entire thing. She is so terrified she can't even move, and she's just staring at Todd. And Todd draws his gun again at her and orders her to go into the shipping container. So he brings her inside, he locks her up, and for 65 days, she would remain his prisoner. And over the course of those 65 days, Todd would once or twice a day come down and do whatever he wanted with her. And he told her at the outset that if she ever tried to resist him in any way and didn't do whatever he wanted with her, he would not only kill her, he would also kill her family. And so Kayla very early on decided she would not put up a fight. She just kind of accepted that this was her life, that she would be horribly mistreated, and then probably at some point he would grow tired of her and kill her, but at least she would be sparing her family. And so when the police finally went into that shipping container, Kayla truly did not expect ever to be rescued. So when you watch that video, you need to understand that was someone who believed she was 100% going to die inside of that space. And so after Kayla tells the police officers this totally horrible and traumatic story, they immediately radio over to the other team of police officers that were still at Todd Kohlhepp's residence, still talking to him, and they tell them, hey, this is what Kayla just told us. Todd's reaction to this news was also captured on video.
We have Kayla. We have Kayla in your property. She was locked in a container, okay? She has told us that you shot and killed Charlie. Why did you shoot him?
I didn't shoot anybody, sir.
Okay, why did you lock her in a container in your property?
I was stopped.
She's on your property right now, locked in a container. She's saying you buried Charlie's body on that property.
No, sir.
So you're saying you didn't lock her up, you didn't put her in the Connex box
Wow.
or anything?
No, sir. I'm money an attorney.
Probably a good thing. Go ahead and put him in the back of your car.
Even though Todd would initially deny any wrongdoing and would claim he had nothing to do with what happened to Kayla or Charlie, he would eventually confess not only to killing Charlie and kidnapping Kayla, but also to killing Johnny and Megan Coxey. Apparently, he had done to them what he did to Kayla and Charlie. He had lured the Coxeys onto his property on the promise of work, and then when they reached those two structures, he drew a gun and he shot Johnny and killed him, and then he ordered Megan to go inside of the shipping container. Now, unlike Kayla, who would ultimately comply, and it did save her life, Megan did not. She fought back. She was totally resistant. She wouldn't do anything that he wanted her to do. And so after only 5 days of her being in captivity, he would kill her. And the way he would describe her was, oh, you know, she was acting like a wild animal, so I had to put a bullet in the back of her head. He didn't care at all about these people.
What?
Charlie, Johnny, and Megan's bodies would all be discovered in shallow graves right outside of that shipping container. Knowing he was potentially facing the death penalty and wanting to avoid that, Todd told police after he had confessed to these murders that he could actually confess to even more murders, and if he did, could they take the death penalty off the table? And so the police ultimately would agree, and Todd would tell them that back in 2003, he had walked into a motorbike shop and killed 4 of their staff members.
What?
Apparently, a couple of days earlier, they had offended him in some way. He had gone in there and they had kind of made some snide remark about how he was bad at riding motorcycles. It was kind of in good fun. It was not meant to be very mean, but Todd had taken it as an absolute offense and he could not stand for it. And so literally in broad daylight, he had walked back into this store and gunned all of them down. And then once they were all down, he had walked by each of them and put an additional round into each of their heads. And so as Todd is telling the police this terrible story, he's totally nonchalant about it. He's laughing about it.
That's crazy, bro. That's really crazy because, like, it's just, there's no remorse. You know, those people don't deserve to breathe. They don't deserve to walk on this earth, you know? There's no sympathy. There's no love. It's just pure evil. Those are the people that you torture in prison. Like, bro, what? You torture them. Like, torture them. Like they should know what these people was going through. You feel me? Like, in my opinion, like, you torture those type of people. Like, fuck. Wow. Wow. Just wow.
And he's even bragging to police that they would be proud of him at how quickly he cleared the superbike shop, meaning how quickly he got in there and killed everyone inside.
Wow.
And somehow, because police officers use weapons too, they would appreciate how efficient he was. These 4 murders would be the only additional murders Todd would confess to, and they would be enough to take the death penalty off the table. But it's believed Todd had killed more people. In fact, he had blatantly admitted to Kayla when she was in captivity that his body count was in the high 2 digits. And most likely he was telling her this because he planned on killing her before she could ever escape and tell anyone. But of course, she was rescued, and so the world now knows. However, if Todd never confesses to any more murders, there's a very good chance we'll never know about them. One of the more disturbing aspects of this case is after it became public that Todd Kohlhepp was the killer, someone discovered that an anonymous account was doing all these product reviews on Amazon, and this anonymous account was Todd Kohlhepp. And the products he was reviewing were things like knives and shovels and chainsaws, and the reviews literally were about how he planned on using these tools to kill people, or they were how he had used these tools to kill people, or how he had disposed of bodies. And then there was also a couple of reviews of padlocks, and one of the reviews said he had 5 of them on a shipping container, and so now the shipping container was just like Hotel California. Hotel California is the famous song by the band The Eagles, and in this song, the famous line is, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave." Todd was ultimately sentenced to 7 consecutive life sentences, which means he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. So that's gonna do it, guys.
Wow.
We got something out of today's episode.
That story is really disturbing and just nasty and just sickening, bro. Just sickening. Wow. Yo, man. Y'all be safe, man. Be safe out there. If you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for me. Thank you guys for commenting, sharing, and subscribing. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.